Thinking before speaking is often mistaken for hesitation, insecurity, or lack of confidence. In fast-moving conversations, silence is easily misread as uncertainty. But for many people, that pause is not empty. It is full of checking, aligning, and weighing what is about to leave the mind and enter the world. These individuals experience speech as something consequential. Words are not just sounds to keep interaction flowing. They are carriers of intent, emotion, and impact. Speaking too quickly can feel careless, even invasive to their own inner order. So they slow down. They allow thoughts to form fully before giving them shape. This pause is not fear of being wrong. It is respect for accuracy. In a culture that rewards immediacy, this style of communication can seem out of sync, but internally, it creates coherence. What is spoken tends to match what is meant. What is meant tends to reflect what is actually felt. To understand the psychology of people who think before they speak, it helps to look beyond conversational speed and toward how responsibility, self-regulation, and meaning quietly guide their relationship with language. Deliberate processing over impulsive expression. People who think before they speak are often operating from a different internal priority. Their first concern is not speed, but accuracy. When a thought arises, it does not move directly to the mouth. It passes through several internal layers: clarity, relevance, and consequence. This process happens quickly, but not instantly. Impulsive expression can feel risky to them, not because they fear judgment, but because unfinished thoughts feel unstable once spoken. Words, once released, cannot be retrieved. So they wait. This waiting is not emptiness. It is active mental organization. They are checking whether the thought reflects what they actually believe, whether it adds something useful, and whether it aligns with their emotional state. Many people speak to discover what they think. These individuals prefer to think in order to speak. The difference is subtle but significant. Speaking too soon can feel like leaking something private before it has taken shape. Deliberate processing protects coherence. It ensures that what is said feels owned rather than accidental. This is often mistaken for passivity or slowness, but internally, the mind is engaged in quiet precision. When they do speak, it is rarely filler. It is the result of intention settling into language, not impulse looking for release. Internal filtering and meaning verification. People who think before they speak often run their words through an internal filter long before sound is made. This filter is not about politeness or fear. It is about meaning. They instinctively ask whether what they are about to say actually represents what they intend. Many thoughts appear quickly, but remain vague, emotionally mixed, or only partially true. Speaking them too early can feel misleading, even to themselves. So they verify. They check whether the idea is complete enough to stand on its own, whether the emotion attached to it is settled, whether the message would distort rather than clarify. This verification happens silently, often in seconds, but it is thorough. They are sensitive to how easily language can oversimplify complex inner states. A sentence can collapse nuance, freeze a feeling that is still moving, or lock them into a position they have not fully inhabited yet. Filtering protects against that collapse. It allows meaning to condense before it is shared. This is why their speech often feels measured and intentional. They are not editing to impress. They are editing to stay honest. What they finally say tends to be closer to what they actually mean, not just what surfaced first. From the outside, this can look like overthinking. From the inside, it feels like care. Care for precision, for truthfulness, and for the integrity of thought before it becomes something irreversible in the world. Emotional regulation before verbal release. People who think before they speak are often regulating emotion before allowing language to carry it. They are aware that words amplify feeling. Once spoken, emotion spreads outward, shaping the room and the relationship. Speaking while emotionally activated can feel dangerous to them, not because emotion is wrong, but because it can outrun intention. Anger may sharpen into accusation. Sadness may harden into finality. Even excitement can overpromise what is not yet clear. So they pause. This pause gives emotion time to settle into something more proportional. They are not suppressing feeling. They are allowing it to find its true scale. Only then does speech feel safe. This regulation is internal and quiet, often invisible to others. From the outside, it can look like emotional distance. Inside, it is care. Care for not letting a temporary state define a lasting message. They understand that once emotion is attached to words, it becomes harder to revise. Silence gives them leverage. It allows choice instead of reaction. When they finally speak, the emotion has usually been integrated rather than discharged. The result is language that carries feeling without being driven by it. Thinking before speaking, in this sense, is not emotional avoidance. It is emotional responsibility, ensuring that what is shared reflects what is real, not just what is loud in the moment. Responsibility toward language and impact. People who think before they speak often carry a strong sense of responsibility toward words themselves. They are aware that language does not disappear once it is spoken.
Some things
It
are
lands,
better left
lingers,
unsaid.
and sometimes reshapes how others think or feel long after the moment has passed. Because of this, they treat speech as an act with consequences, not just a tool for expression. A careless sentence can introduce confusion, hurt, or misunderstanding that cannot easily be undone. This awareness creates caution, but not fear. They are not silent because they doubt themselves. They are quiet because they respect the weight of influence. Before speaking, they intuitively consider how their words might be received, interpreted, or carried forward. Not to control others' reactions, but to avoid unnecessary harm. They prefer language that clarifies rather than escalates, that stabilizes rather than agitates. This sense of responsibility is often invisible in fast conversations, where immediacy is valued over reflection, yet it shapes everything they say. Their speech tends to be measured, precise, and restrained. Not emotionally flat, but intentional. They understand that words can build or erode trust in subtle ways. Thinking before speaking becomes a form of ethical care, a quiet commitment to not using language lightly. When they finally speak, it is often because they are willing to stand behind what they say, not just in the moment, but afterward as well. People who think before they speak often operate on a slower cognitive tempo, but with greater precision. Their minds are not stalled, they are refining. Thoughts move through layers, shedding excess before reaching language. This takes time, but it produces clarity. In fast conversations, speed is often mistaken for intelligence or confidence. Yet speed prioritizes immediacy over accuracy. These individuals instinctively reverse that priority. They would rather arrive late with something true than arrive early with something incomplete. Their pauses are not gaps. They are calibration points, moments where ideas are adjusted to fit reality more closely. This slower tempo allows nuance to survive. Contradictions can be held without being flattened into slogans.
But
uncertainty
why
can
is
be
it
acknowledged
so
without being
important
disguised
right
as
now?
certainty. Precision becomes possible because nothing is rushed out of the mind prematurely. From the outside, this can look like hesitation. Inside, it feels like alignment. Words and thoughts begin to match. Meaning is not approximated, it is distilled. Thinking before speaking, in this way, reflects respect for complexity. It is a refusal to trade accuracy for speed, even when the social rhythm pushes for immediacy. What emerges is speech that may be slower, but tends to be cleaner, steadier, and more reliable over time. For people who think before they speak, silence is not a breakdown in communication. It is where communication begins. Silence gives thought a container, a place to expand without being rushed into shape. In that space, ideas are tested quietly. Contradictions are noticed. Emotions are checked for intensity versus truth. What others may interpret as hesitation is often deep engagement. The mind is not emptying, it is organizing. Many conversations treat silence as a problem to solve, a gap that needs to be filled quickly. For these individuals, filling the gap too soon would interrupt the process that makes speech meaningful. They understand that the first impulse is rarely the most accurate one. Silence allows the second and third layers of thought to surface. This is where nuance lives. This is where intention separates from reaction. Speaking without this space can feel like surrendering control of one's own meaning. So they wait, not to appear thoughtful, but to actually think. When silence is allowed, their eventual words tend to land with clarity and steadiness. They are not catching up to the conversation, they are shaping their contribution before releasing it. In this way, silence becomes an active cognitive space, not a social failure, but a necessary condition for language that reflects what is truly meant. Speech as integration rather than reaction. People who think before they speak often experience language as the final stage of integration, not the starting point. Speech, for them, is what happens after thought, emotion, and intention have aligned. They do not use words to discharge tension or to test ideas in public. They wait until something inside has settled into coherence. Reaction is fast and reactive by nature. It carries the raw edge of the moment. Integration is slower. It involves letting experience pass through multiple internal layers until it makes sense as a whole. Only then does speaking feel appropriate. This is why their words often sound grounded rather than urgent. They are not trying to win a moment. They are trying to express something that can stand beyond it. In heated situations, this can make them appear detached. But internally, they are working to prevent fragmentation. They know that reacting too quickly can fracture meaning, locking them into a position shaped by impulse rather than understanding. By waiting, they allow context, emotion, and reasoning to converge. Speech becomes a synthesis rather than a reflex. What they say tends to reflect not just what happened, but how it was processed. This gives their words a certain weight and durability. They are less likely to retract or regret what they say because it has already been lived with internally. Thinking before speaking, in this sense, is not about control or caution. It is about allowing language to emerge from wholeness rather than from immediacy. Thinking before speaking is often seen as a communication delay in a world that values immediacy. But psychologically, it is a form of internal alignment. For these individuals, words are not tools for release or performance. They are commitments. Speech emerges only after thought, emotion, and intention have been brought into coherence. This approach protects meaning from distortion and emotion from misuse. It allows language to carry truth rather than impulse. In fast exchanges, this style can seem quiet or slow, yet over time, it builds trust. People learn that when these individuals speak, they mean what they say, and they have already lived with it internally. Their pauses are not empty spaces. They are spaces where responsibility, care, and precision are quietly at work. Thinking before speaking is not hesitation. It is respect for language, for others, and for the self. A way of ensuring that what enters the world through words reflects something whole, considered, and able to endure beyond the moment.